people in, and we'll get those lean and accountable to the people. We can do so much more with the money we spend. With the $20 trillion in debt, can you imagine that? The government must learn to tighten its belt, something families all across the country have had to learn to do, unfortunately, but they've had to learn to do it, and they've done it well. My budget increases spending, and the increase in all spending for federal law enforcement also, and activities having to do with law enforcement, will be substantially increased, and we will fight violent crime. You look at what's happening in our cities. You look at what's happening in Chicago. What's going on in Chicago? We will fight violent crime, and we will win, and we'll win that one fairly quickly. Once we give the local police, the local law enforcement, the right to go in and fight it, and we back them monetarily and also otherwise, we're going to win that one. We're going to win it fairly quickly, I believe. My budget also puts America first by keeping tax dollars in America to help veterans and first responders. So important. This budget follows through on my promise to focus on keeping Americans safe, keeping out terrorists, keeping out criminals, and putting violent offenders behind bars or removing them from our country altogether. And I must say that we've been treated very well, very, very well, on the job that General Kelly has done at the border. It's tough, it's strong. I was talking last night to Terry McAuliffe, and he said, you have to mention this, because he met with, where is Terry? He's around here someplace. Terry, he met with General Kelly, and I think I can say you were impressed with General Kelly. And he said, you have to get the point out that they're removing the bad ones. And that's where our focus is. It's the bad ones. We're getting some very, very bad players out of this country. Drug lords, gang members, heads of gangs, killers, murderers. We're getting them out. That's what we're focused on. The press isn't covering that, unfortunately. But it's something that is very important. We're getting the bad ones out. And that's always where I said I was going to start. I was going to start with these bad players. And they are bad. They are rough and tough, and we're getting them the hell out of our country, and we're bringing them to where they started out. Let their country do what they have to do with them. So the budget, which is going to be a very big part of tomorrow night's speech, is going to be, I think, a budget of great rationality, but it's going to have to do with military, safety, economic development, and things such as that. Great detail tomorrow night. We're also going to do whatever we can to restore the authority of the states when that is the appropriate thing to do. We're going to give you back a lot of the powers that have been taken away from states and great people and great governors. And you can control it better than the federal government because you're right on top of it. You have something that's controllable. So I think that's going to be very important. You see that already taking effect. We have to let the states compete and to see who has the best solutions. They know the best how to spend their dollars and how to take care of the people within each state. And states are different, and people are different. So the governors are going to have a lot more decision-making ability than they have right now. All states will benefit from our economic agenda. We will reduce taxes very, very substantially and simplify the tax code. We're also going to make taxes between countries much more fair. We're one of the only countries in the world that people can sell their product into us and have no tax, no nothing, and they get rich. And yet if you want to do business with them, you'll have taxes I've seen as high as 100%. So they sell into us, no problem. We sell into them because we don't sell in because the tax is so high that they don't want us to sell into them. So I know that's always been a point of contention, but to me, it's just fair. It's just fair. It's reciprocal. It's fair. And so we're going to be doing a lot of work on that, and that's becoming a very, very important factor, fairness, because I believe in free trade. I want so much trade. You know, somebody said, oh, maybe he's a total nationalist, which I am in a true sense. But I want trade. I want great trade between countries. But the word free is very deceiving because it's good for them, it's not good for us. I want fair trade. And if we're going to be taxed, they should be taxed at the same amount. the other countries. And one of two things is going to happen. We're going to make a lot of money, or the other country is going to get rid of its tax. And that's good, too, because now the product, like Harley-Davidson, I was talking to them, the product will now flow into other countries, where right now they can't do it. So we're going to make it easier for states to invest in infrastructure, and I'm going to have a big statement tomorrow night on infrastructure. We spend $6 trillion in the Middle East, and we have potholes all over our highways and our roads. I have a friend who's in the trucking business. He said, my trucks are destroyed going from New York to Los Angeles. They're destroyed. He said, I'm not going to get the good trucks anymore. He always prided himself on buying the best equipment. He said the roads are so bad that by the time we make the journey from New York to Los Angeles or back, he said the equipment is just beat to hell. I said, when has it been like that before? He said it's never. He's been in the business for 40 years. He said it's never been like that. 40 years, never been like that. So we're going to take care of that. Infrastructure, we're going to start spending on infrastructure big. And not like we have a choice. It's not like, oh, gee, let's hold it off. Our highways, our bridges are unsafe. Our tunnels, I mean, we have tunnels in New York where the tiles are on the ceiling and you see many tiles missing. And you wonder, you know, you're driving 40 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour through a tunnel. You take a look at the Lincoln Tunnel and the Queens Midtown Tunnel, and you're driving and you see all this loose material that's heavy. You know, it was made many years ago, so it's heavy. Today it's light. Used to be better. The problem is you got to hold it up. And I say to myself, every time I drive through, I say, man, I wonder how many people are hurt or injured when they're driving at 40, 50 miles an hour through a tunnel and a tile falls off. And there's so many missing tiles and such loose concrete. So we have to fix our infrastructure. It's not like we have a choice. We have no choice. And we're going to do it. And it also happens to mean jobs, which is a good thing. We're going to repeal and replace Obamacare and get states the flexibility that they need to make the end result really, really good for them. Very complicated issue. We have Tom Price, just got confirmed, sitting here. Stand up, Tom. And I spent a lot of time with Governor Walker and Governor Rick Scott the other day. We were talking about it. They're really very expert on the subject, and I want to thank them. They spent a lot of time with me. Governor Christie, who's here someplace. Where's Chris? Governor Christie. Thank you. And so we have a lot of talent and a lot of expertise here, I will tell you. And we have come up with a solution that's really, really, I think, very good. Now, I have to tell you, it's an unbelievably complex subject. Nobody knew that health care could be so complicated. And statutorily and for budget purposes, as you know, we have to do health care before we do the tax cut. The tax cut is going to be major. It's going to be simple. And the whole tax plan is wonderful. But I can't do it until we do health care because we have to know what the health care is going to cost. And statutorily, that's the way it is. So for those people that say, oh, gee, I wish we could do, you know, the tax first, it just doesn't work that way. I would like to do that first. It's actually, tax cutting has never been that easy, but it's a tiny little ant compared to what we're talking about with Obamacare. And you have to remember, and I say this to Democrats in the room, of which we have many, Obamacare has failed. If you go to Minnesota, where they had a 66% increase, and the governor of Minnesota, who's with us today, said Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, is no longer affordable, something to that effect. I think that might be it exactly, but the Affordable Care Act is no longer affordable. Obamacare has failed. I say to the Republicans, if you really want to do politically something good, don't do anything. Sit back for a period of 2 years, because 17 is going to be a disaster for Obamacare if we don't do something. Let it be a disaster, because we can blame that on the Dems that are in our room, and we can blame that on the Democrats and President Obama. Let it implode. And then let it implode in 18 even worse. Don't do anything. And they will come begging for us to do something. But that's not the fair thing to do for the people. not the fair thing. Politically, I think it would be a